Yes people, and welcome to a bit of an unexpected video. So I've had a few people messaging me recently saying they're finding the content really helpful, thank you for that by the way, and that you're looking forward to seeing some more jump up related content. As you can tell by this video, I've listened. So essentially what happened was, on Friday night I was playing in Birmingham for 25 years of Logan D. I was back to back JJ in room 2. We were on fairly early, I think we were on an hour after the venue opened, but anyway, during our set I decided to try out some new music I've been working on. And so the very next day when I was on my sofa just going through the project, I had a look at it and thought this is actually rather simple and I could probably make a video on this. Now I'll be honest, the production quality on this video isn't the best. After all, I was on my sofa and I barely slept after getting in from the gig. And so what I'm going to be doing is just breaking down a sort of Froggy kind of jump up song. I don't know if it's considered Froggy by today's standards, but I mean I was making this sort of music back in 2018. But anyway, the whole frog thing's kind of a new term anyway, but regardless of that, I hope what I recorded is all good. I did actually record an intro, but watching it back, it wasn't the best. So what I'll do is I'll play the tune first, or well, most of it, because the second half is just a loop. And then I'll break down exactly what I've done. Anyway, I know I'm waffling on a bit, so I do hope you find the following useful or helpful. And if you do find it helpful or useful, please do consider subscribing, liking, commenting, all that kind of generic YouTube stuff. And now I have waffled on for too long, so here's the tune. Okay, so the way I'm going to go through this project is in reverse order. So I'm going to start with the master and then deconstruct the project as it was built. So on the master channel, if you've seen any of my other videos, you might have guessed this was coming, and that is Camel Crusher and Fab Filter. I'm not going to go in depth into this because I've already got a video on my mastering process for Jump Up at least anyway. And just to give you an idea of what it's doing exactly. So this, with it on, as you can see, it's hitting around that kind of -3 mark, -2.9 there. And if we were to turn this off, we would be getting around -7, slightly above, yeah, -6.9 there. So yeah, this is here really just to give it that little bit of loudness. What this utility at the beginning of the channel is doing though, oh dear, it's got automation on the gain, which just before the tune drops is dropping in volume. And what that helps do is create a bigger impact when the drop hits. So if I just play it quickly now, so. And if we turn that off, it just doesn't hit as hard. It's a little bit of a trickery, and I know a ton of producers use this trick throughout like loads of genres, so yeah, it's definitely a good one to know. Okay, so moving on from the master, we've got the intro. The intro for this tune was thrown together rather quickly, as you can probably see. I mean, it's got the violin screech from Psycho, which is a bit of a bait sample choice, and it's one that I do actually want to change, hence why the name of this tune is Temp Psycho, because only there temporarily. Same with the vocal below. But yeah, this all I've done is raise some of the highs for it, so just makes it a bit more prominent in the track, and then that loops. Interestingly, you might have noticed that it's not entire. Well, it starts quite on beat, and then towards the end it seems to drift off. Now, I did look at changing this, but then when you play it with the drums, which are keeping the beat, it just works regardless, so I didn't see the need to change it. Now moving on from that is the vocal sample, and this is again one that I just found typing in like horror movie quotes into YouTube, and I came across this one. Now interestingly, the sample isn't that, it doesn't sound that high quality, so if I play whatever you do. In fact, let me play it on its own, just so you can get an idea of what it's sounding like before I do anything. And I'll even drop the volume a bit.
Whatever you do, don't.
I don't know if you heard it on that part in particular.
There's
almost like a bit of a bit of resonance to it. So when you're doing stuff to it, that can become more prominent, especially considering I've compressed the hell out of it. And boosted some of the highs, also dropping some of those frequencies around, what, 300, 200? Yeah, near 200, 187, so that's just essentially squishing it. Well, the compressor is squishing it, and I've whacked an echo on there as well, just to almost fill out some of the space in the background, and it also helps add to that kind of eerie effect as well.
Whatever you do.
But yeah, it's just a shame about the quality of the sample, really. But yeah, I threw this tune together quickly so I could play it out. But alongside the intro are a lot of effects in the background. So if we just play the intro without the effects... In fact, let's add the drums. So there's all that kind of like space. So the effects here... filling out a lot of that space. And again, as I keep saying, I threw this tune together quickly, so a lot of these sort of effects are ones I've actually already made. So this channel here, for example, this is from a tune of mine, so throughout the tune it's just got all these different effects happening. So yeah, there's just all these sorts of layers of like uplifters and downlifters. So I mean, this here is just a bit of a background filler. Again, not going to go too much into that because I've got a video on it. Should probably put links to these all in the description. So for the first half of the 16 bar intro, the effects are sort of going to be pulling it down, and then for the second half, the effects are going to be helping build that tension, ready for the drop. And then we have the vocal coming. I should also mention that I've kind of helped build that tension with the vocal, or attempted to at least, because yeah, I'm not entirely sure I'm satisfied with this, but a reverse from the vocal itself. But yeah, I don't know if I'm overly happy with the end result of this one, but it kind of works. So obviously all these effects like build up in anticipation of the drop. So when it comes to effects in the drop, I tend to follow this similar pattern of like downlifters kind of releasing the tension, and then uplifters bringing more tension back in, have that occurring over, you know, every sort of 8, 16 bars, that kind of thing. If I play the effects on the drop without the bass or the sub, so if you can hear, pulling it down, coming back, and then again doing the same thing. again, after 16, bigger. And so yeah, I'm not going to go through the entirety of the effects channel, but you should be able to get the idea from just that alone. I have this kind of whip sound from like Shaolin type films. But yeah, it's all about that kind of like flow and progression. One thing I will say while I've seen it though is that for the second half of the drop, I have added this kind of chant in the background. Again, it's one that I pre-made from an old tune. I mean, I don't know if any of you will recognise that tune because it is old, but yeah, just this chant, just again to just help with the progression of the tune. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to the drums. There isn't really much to say about these drums. The kick and the snare are one that I made myself at different points. So the Bratislava kick was just a kick I made when I was on holiday in Bratislava. I'm pretty sure it was made using kind of like splice samples and that kind of thing. But yeah, again, if you want to see the process of making a kick, just have a look through some of the Splice Sessions videos. It's a similar process to how I would have made this one. Same with the snare, one that I made a while ago. Pretty straightforward pattern. So one thing you might have noticed in comparison to the Splice Sessions videos, I've actually drawn these in as MIDI as opposed to dragging the audio to the project. And the reason for that is the sidechaining, but I'll get onto that in a little bit. Also, I've got this little reverse snare here, which again, that's from another one of my snares. It's a good little gap filler, especially when you cut the drums. So it just, if you take it out, I don't know, it's just doesn't hit the same. Yeah, much prefer the hit of that. And then last but not least for the drums, we've got the hi-hats. Now again, there's not much to these drums at all because it's all stuff from other tunes. So found hats, just kind of like this, kind of like solid hat with like a little bit of percussion in the background that I really like. So I use that in quite a few tunes. And then I'm guessing these would have been from Splice. Yeah, I can tell that's from Splice with TSP. So just something to layer it on, but very simple. So we've also got just these little shuffles which just help with the hat pattern. So it's just filling that little gap. So if you don't have them there, I mean there is the kind of whip sound, but yeah, I don't know, it's just, I just think it fits, so it went in. Simple as that, really. One thing I do like to do is that over the like timeline of the drop is I like to have the hats like evolve or have things added. So this is what the first 16 here is just all the same pretty much. And then after for the next 16, got these kind of like splashy cymbals, which okay. So what I've done here, I've actually halved this drum pattern, so this would have been, and I've halved it, which to be fair I think the slowed down version fits the tune much better because it's not like a I don't know, like a proper rolling kind of tune, is it? It's just a little boppy jump up number. Okay, so then that's the first 32 of hats. So then for the second 32, making up the second half of the drop, it's the exact same thing, but throughout is this layer. I'm guessing this is a splash cymbal. It is a splash cymbal. Or some sort of splash cymbal, I don't know exactly, but that would have been the vibe I was going for because I do like a splash cymbal. Okay, so now going back to why I drew in MIDI for the kick and the snare. So the reason I've chosen to use MIDI as opposed to like dragging the audio files into the project and laying them out like that is you can, when you're using MIDI, you can route it to certain VSTs. So the way this is done is once this is all drawn in, I just create a new channel on Ableton, which is this SC's group here, which stands for Sidechain. I got one for the kick, one for the snare, and then using the external instrument routing, it goes to Flux Mini 2 by Calum Audio. I think it's Calum. And what this allows you to do is almost act as like a compressor, but you're actually just like ducking the volume. So I suppose that's what a compressor does, but they work a bit different, I think. Anyway, not the point. So if I just play it with and without, so... and then without... I don't think it's too noticeable, but it's definitely working, because if I drag this over here... you can hear it working. Now, onto the bass. So, this is where all the frogginess comes from, really. So, I'll start with the boring parts first, which are the sub and the square layer. So, the square layer, again, already gone over it in a previous video. So, again, I'm not going to go too much into this. And the sub is one that I've made, just pretty straightforward, massive patch, triangle, a triangle wave with some distortion. Going into a Pro Q3, which is then rolling off the top and is ducking the kind of sub frequencies a little. So I know it's a sub. So yeah, I've rolled it off because I tend to find those like sub frequencies the ones that can cause the most interference in a track, especially if it's getting loud. I believe I've sent this to Send. I have. And so then the return that I'd put on this... okay, so so this is just distorting it a little bit, and then I imagine this is like cutting off. Yeah, so this is essentially making that kind of 200 hertz mark like very like visible, and then I've got some width on it with a dimension expander. So just giving that kind of like low end mark a bit of, I don't know, width, which can be a dodgy area to be getting wide in. So it's definitely one to be careful around. Right, now let's get on to the actual frog elements of this, shall we? So all the basses in this tune are made on Razor, which is a synth I love. Not many people use it. And so the way I've got my basses set out here is... so this group is the main sound, and then we've got the variation sound there. This is the kind of end of bar filler. And then this is kind of the sort of end of phrase. It's just like an end of sort of 8-bar transition, I guess. And that's got a reverb on it. Just making it bigger, and then as the new sound comes in, it just like cuts back, so it just helps. I don't know. I just thought it sounded cool, but I think it helps like transition phases, really. So I'm not going to go too much in the actual stock sound itself, because I don't think that's the most important part. What I think is most important is the actual sort of like processing of it. So this is what it sounds like raw. I'll even copy the MIDI channel just so you can like really get an example. So very, very quiet. But yeah, without going too much into the patch, it is just the Foreman and the comb notch filter doing a lot of work. But anyway, alright, so I'll mute all the effects on this channel. So firstly, we have a dimension expander, which is just going to add some width to the bass and make it sound a bit bigger. So then next on the list, we've got an EQ, just a sort of, which is cutting off any of those sort of like sub frequencies. And as you can see, I've also used it for some automation throughout the drop to, again, aid with transitions. Then we've got a saturator, and I imagine this is where it gets really loud. Well, it gets really loud in comparison to what it was. So yeah, just adding some warmth. And then we got a Trash 2. Now I love Trash 2. It's one of my favourite VSTs, and I can't believe Isotop stopped making it. And this has also been part of the reason I've actually not done too many of these videos, is because things like Trash 2 you can't buy anymore. So this Trash 2 is just adding some warmth with the Trash setting. Really just kind of like making it, I don't know, bring it to life a bit. So following that, I've rolled off again some of those low frequencies. The thing with a tune like this is, I mean, you saw the sub yourself, it is really going to be filling up a lot of that like, I don't know, 100 to 200, 300 sort of mark. Maybe not 300, but yeah, 100 to 200 mark. So yeah, no harm in rolling off all the lows. But when you add more distortion, you're going to be adding more frequencies in that area, so you get the idea, I hope. Now, next is a glue compressor, just squeezing it a little bit. Yeah, not too much to say on that one. And then a decapitator, which I imagine is going to be adding some of that warmth I love. Yeah, that really does like add a kind of, I don't know. It really does add like a thickness to it. Now, as I just mentioned, distorting stuff brings in more frequencies. So again, cutting all those lows are below 100. And this has actually got, so it's like low shelving a little bit as well. So that the frequencies around the, like, I don't know, 1K and above mark have really become a bit more prominent. I'm also rolling off some of those higher frequencies as well. I know for a fact that on this next EQ, I'm boosting around that, where is it? 6K mark. So this is this is adding like a new kind of ear piercingness. So okay, so finally for this group of bass, it's all going to a send here, which is adding a bit of low end, I believe, which you might think is ironic because I've just said I was each time adding distortion and cutting the low end. But anyway, this is just how I've worked it with this one. So we've got an EQ, which is basically carving out everything from, I don't know, about 250 onwards to a K. That's then being distorted, and then pretty much the same thing's happening again on another EQ. And then finally, I've just put it through a cabinet, which is similar to the convol feature on Trash, which I don't think I've actually mentioned yet, but I know it definitely features. So yeah, that layer is just, I don't know, it's just adding a bit of low end to a sound. I know I spent most of the tune trying to take that low end out, but the low end that's been added by this send and return is completely different to the low end that would have been on the original sound had it not been taken out. So finally, this group of the bass sounds and the sub and that buzz layer, they are all going to 3 sends themselves. So the first layer is, let's have a listen. Okay, so this is convolve, and as you can hear, let me just mute the other things on it. So convolve is, it basically makes things sound almost like in certain spaces or a room. So yeah, it's almost, so I think the way it works is it's similar to a reverb, but yeah, what I've done with this is I've tried to add a layer to this sound, and just this combination of this EQ and the Trash, it just sounded nice to me as a layer. So, you know, without the EQ and then with the EQ. And then I've run that through an OTT, which is, yeah, about 46%, because, you know, using the classic method of like putting reverb into an OTT to make it sound bigger. It's a trick that I know a lot of people use, but I like it because it works. So on this second return, we've got some reverb, which is, again, it's just adding some space to the sound. It's making it a bit bigger. So, and then although I've put this reverb into an OTT, I've then cut out those sub-frequencies again on another EQ. And then the final return channel is this erosion, which is just adding some kind of crispy white noise to the sound. So again, not something I'm going to go into too much because I have made a video on it, but it's essentially adding some crispy white noise to fill out the space using an erosion. And that's pretty much the tune, you know, like pretty straightforward, nothing too overly complicated, you know, like small bits of variation happening here and there over the drop. But yeah, at the moment it's just a copy paste tune, just which I'm hoping to one day properly finish. But I hope this has been helpful. I have no idea if this video has actually been any good, because I had the idea after playing this tune last night to go through it on a video, but yeah, I haven't made any sort of plan, which if I was doing a video like this, I normally would have planned it, but I figured, why not? Let's just make something on the fly, and yeah, I hope it's good. But yeah, let me know what you think of the tune. Let me know if there's anything in this tune you'd have liked me to have gone into a bit more. When I do hit 1,000 subs, I do plan to do another one of these, hopefully a bit more planned and prepared. But yeah, with that one, I will be putting a poll out to see which tune of mine you want me to go over. Anyway, enough of me waffling on. I'm absolutely shattered. But yeah, until next time, I'll see you later.